In this video, we're going to be looking at conditional bindings. We're going to actually look at a couple of scenarios because they're nice and short and we can just cover a whole slew of them in one go. The first one we're going to look at is attribute level bindings. This can really be any attribute. For the purpose of this example, we're just using the aria hidden, and we're saying that if the location code is essentially empty, then I want to set the aria hidden attribute to true, else, and that's the little copy key there, I want it to be false. So if I take the location code and I tab out of it, you can see that the button has now disappeared. And then if I make it into a valid value again, you can see that the value is back. And so when you want to show and hide items, this is the recommended way of doing things, but you can do a whole lot more with it. Essentially any attribute that you can think of, you can manipulate in that way. The other one is class level attributes. So class is not a, well, class is an actual attribute that you want, where you can add or remove CSS class names. So in this case, we're saying if the code value is equal to test code, I want to include the classes bold and italic. So if I look at the code field here, I can see it's bold and italic. But if I actually change the value, those items are removed because it's no longer test code. And if I put it back, you can see it's back to that again. In the same situation, I can also still have an else. So if I wanted to, I could say else make it red. So that would be a valid scenario. But you can also notice here that I'm adding more than one class to this. So the rule that we're following with all of these items is essentially that the first item is your condition, and then comma, and everything else that follows that is the implementation of it. So in the case of the aria hidden, it would be the values that we want to stick into the attribute. In the case of the class, it's a list of class names that you want to do, and it's all comma separated. So if I say else, I want it to be underscore and red, I can do that as well. So that would be a valid scenario. This one is a little bit more interesting because these are style attributes. And so what this does, it's a little bit different to a class. A class is where you have this preset class set up that goes and does a whole bunch of style changes. This is just a particular style change. There are two here, style and style variable. I'll explain now what that means. Let's just quickly look at what this does. In both cases, if the site code is A12, I want to perform something. In this case, I'm setting a style value. So I'm setting the background color of the style to a particular color. It's like a cornflower bluish type of thing. And this is actually quite important to note here because the color variables normally have a hash in it. But since we're working with a hexadecimal value here and hashes actually within the framework means inflate, we're using 0x as the prefix to say this is a hexadecimal value that I want to transfer, and it'll in the background do all the necessary massage work for you. So let's just quickly see what this thing does when I do that. So I can now see that the background has changed to blue, and the CSS variable C font label has also changed to a particular color. The reason why we do the variables is because these labels actually use CSS variables. So within this particular context, I want this variable to be pink. It does not affect things on a global scope, only on this local scope. And so you could set the color to be a manual color, but it wouldn't actually work. You'll find that it would not function if I said here, set the color to pink. because of the fact that it uses the CSS variable. So if you want to be able to set the background color of a group in this example to blue and the actual labels to pink, this is how you would go about doing that. And so for all of these variations, be it style level conditions or CSS variable or style variable conditions, whether you want to add or remove particular classes to an item, or just go and set HTML attributes that has certain effects, the condition binding will deal with them all. So just to recap, first item is the condition. The items after that is the implementation. The only implementation part that I didn't explain is in the case of the style and the style variable, the way that you do this is actually by defining the property and then a colon and then the value. So I could chain this a couple of times and say the border is blue. That would also be legitimate.